Russian punk culture is very different. Jim Morrison's dorky brother. This is the difference between them and Caleb Maupin. Caleb did not inherit any of that drip. Why am I nerding out on a Saturday night? Chat, if this is like too nerdy for you, let me know. Like, I also like to play video games. So chat, this was what DJ Mule was watching. This is what DJ Mule was looking at in the video that he made that I watched on stream that became my video of staring into the Nazbol Vortex with DJ Mule. This is the original source material, and somebody told me to make sure to take a look at this, so it's probably a good time. And I believe that Caleb Maupin will be in this. Wait, is this not like... There are Russian subtitles.
Лишив работы в результате крупного скандала. И сладок, как английский торт Джеки.
The story of the most controversial party of post-Soviet Russia began when, after Perestroika, writer Eduard Limonov...
So Perestroika was a set of reforms enacted under Mikhail Gorbachev, which were designed to... at least kind of like give a greater sense of freedom to Russian people and maybe try to modernize the country, if I'm remembering correctly. Anyway, some hardliners blamed Perestroika for the downfall of the USSR state, while others kind of saw it as a last-ditch effort to save the USSR.
Returned to his homeland. As a left-wing dissident poet, Limonov was forced to immigrate from the USSR to the United States in 1974. In the US, he lives in New York, where he collects social welfare, works as a handyman, tries to become a journalist and get close to the local bohemians, and also attends meetings of the Socialist Workers' Party, created by American Trotskyists in the 30s.
It was Chernobyl that doomed the USSR ultimately.
Limonov is being published in Russia.
Look at this. It's like Jim Morrison's dorky brother. Chat, what? Was he like a rock star or something? Why is he taking this picture? Why is he taking this picture?
Russian language newspaper, New Russian World.
He really does. It looks like he's trying to do a Jim Morrison pose. Like, I swear to God, there's a Jim Morrison picture just like
where
that.
He describes his frustration with the West and disdain for capitalist society. At the same time, he writes an autobiographical novel
Stephen King Morrison, yes, yes!
about his adventures of a Russian immigrant in
I like that impact.
America, called It's Me, Eddie.
It's me, Eddie.
The novel was published in several journals in
Wait, a fictional memoir? What the fuck? Wait, what? How is it a fictional memoir?
1979, but gained some prominence only in the Russian immigrants'
I didn't know Mick Jagger went through a Nazbol phase.
circles and outside
Ramones, look at this guy! Look at this guy! He's like a fucking... He's a fucking like show... He's like going to the shows and shit.
of the US, in France.
You know this dude had a band. You know this guy had a band.
In the same year,
That's probably why he took the shirt. Like, that's probably why he took the pictures.
Limonov's connections to the Socialist Workers' Party draws the attention of the FBI.
I'm not saying it was a band that anybody listened to, but he definitely had a band.
And after several interrogations,
It's Devo! It's his Devo!
in 1980, Limonov, with his lover, model and singer Natalia Medvedeva, who also was a Soviet immigrant, decided to move to France. After moving to Paris, Limonov became close with members of the Communist Party of France, PSF, and started to write to its press organ, the journal La Humanité. Living in France, Medvedeva sings at bars and restaurants.
Those glasses are classic in the USSR.
And Limonov continues to write
classic USSR.
new novels, which have been published almost every year, but with modest success. However, in 1990,
Can anybody tell me what It's Me, Eddie is about? Like, how does a fictional memoir work? Is it like you imagine the rest of your life and then you write a like, what the fuck is a fictional memoir?
with the fall of the USSR, Soviet censorship also
How come Maupin can't? I know, that's funny. That's actually funny. Like, listen, okay, say what you want about Limonov and Dugin, and you should, because they're fucking disgusting. But motherfuckers had drip. And Caleb did not inherit any of that drip.
To exist. It's me, Eddie.
The only drip that Caleb has is the drip coming out of his nose, okay? That is how bad it is, chat. That is how bad it is.
Was published in Russia, which immediately brought fame to Limonov in his controversial novel, full of...
His part truth... Oh, okay. Oh, I'm trying to think, like a William S. Burroughs kind of thing? Caleb didn't listen to any Ramones. Yo, I believe you. Hey, I would bet that Limonov maybe only had the shirt. He seems like the kind of guy that would buy the shirt and be like, yes, this shit, like, he never listens to the band.
Profanity and shocking for the Soviet reader pornographic scenes, including Limonov's description of him giving head to a black man. Having not found success in France, Limonov with Medvedeva, who by that time...
Wait, did I miss that he's bisexual, or... Did I completely miss that? Like the example of him giving head... Yeah, what the fuck is... These guys would have laughed at Maupin. I mean, yeah, he's definitely way cooler than Maupin.
His wife moved to Russia. Just like in the US and France.
Yeah, exactly. And it was an art film. Okay.
Having returned to his homeland, immediately started...
I seriously zoned out for a second, and then when I perked up again, it was like giving head to a black man. I was like, oh, okay.
To look for connections with the political and bohemian crowd who had emerged from the Soviet underground.
I'm just trying to imagine what the fucking art, what the art flick was. What was the art flick?
While Medvedeva began her career as a journalist and a professional singer. At this time in Russia, Yeltsin's shock therapy economy reforms began to unfold in the country. There had been massive privatization of state-owned enterprises in favor of a small group of individuals.
And this is what allowed the rise of the Russian oligarchs. This kind of sets the stage for Putin and everything. The U.S. Yeltsin is regarded very much as a U.S. puppet. You know, that he was the one that the U.S. wanted, right? And he basically, like, there were two ways that the U.S. could have pursued their foreign policy with the former Soviet Union. One of the ways would have been to say, hey, you lost the Cold War, but we don't hate your people. We just hated your system of government. And now that you've changed that, here's a hand up, and, like, let's be friends, right? Or, you know what I mean? There could have been, like, a different kind of policy in the U.S., even from a capitalist perspective, even gaming this out as with the United States as a pro-capitalist government, right? That could have happened. Instead, what happened was the U.S. said, hey, businesses, come on in, and just grab it all up, right? You know, they pursued the policies that, you know, were good for business, not the policies that would have been good for some sort of a friendship between the two countries. And because of that, like, I mean, the U.S., I would say, is this a spicy take? I think the U.S. contributed significantly to the social decay that the Soviet Union, or Russia, the now Russian Federation experienced post-Soviet Union. I think a lot of that you can put on the U.S.
Who had become the new elite.
Maybe I'm wrong, and if I'm wrong, you can let me know in chat.
Soviet citizens, having gained the long-awaited freedom, began to lose...
Oh, that's right. Yeah. The Russian, yes. I think we can say that. Wait, I can say that word, right? Can I say the word? I can say the word. Wait, the words... I know the words I'm not allowed to say. Is that word a word I can say?
Any social safeguards. The country's neoliberal course
Why do I feel naughty?
united nationalists and patriotic communists in opposition to the new power. Nationalists saw Yeltsin and his government as conspired with the Jews, traitors to the Russian nation.
Oh shit, so there's another way that you could take this besides seeing this as like, you know, because he did conspire with the U.S. interest probably. I mean, like he was at the very least a useful idiot for the U.S., but instead... This is going to take a different angle, and a very classic angle if you know anything about, you know, the history of Russia and the Soviet Union in regards to Jewish people, right? It's...
While communists exposed them as pro-Western capitalist traitors to the Soviet people. Returning from abroad, Limonov, realizing that the new government saw as its ideal the Western model of society.
The butthole surfers,
In
yeah.
which
Yeah, I
he
mean,
had
like, we should be
already
okay
been
to say pussy, right?
Appointed, takes the side of the red-brown opposition.
I've definitely said the word pussy before on stream, right?
In 1992, he became acquainted with the philosopher Alexander Dugin, and in 1993 they created the National Bolshevik Party, and the party's main mouthpiece, the Limonka
Wait, that was Dugin? Yo, Dugin looks like straight up no-commed in that picture.
newspaper in
He's like, what is Dugin on? Jesus
1994.
Christ, did he just do some ketamine or something?
While Limonov was the official leader of the NBP,
See,
Dugin
like,
became
I mean, these guys
an
are piece of shit Nazbols, but like they were cool. They looked cool while doing it. I guess this is the difference between. He was a philosopher. This is the difference between them and Caleb Boppin.
ideologist of the party, borrowing ideas of National Bolshevism from Nikolai Ostryalov and Ernst Nikisch and trying to create their synthesis with the traditionalism of Guénon and Novoa, as well as with Marxism-Leninism
Multicultural polycule,
and
yeah.
Eurasianism. Almost immediately after the creation of the party, Dugin and Limonov were joined by Igor Letov,
Limonov Orbison,
the
yes.
leader of the most famous punk band in the country,
What is up with all these right-wing punk singers? What the fuck?
Gражданская оборона. Letov, frustrated with anarchism as a political liberation project, sought new
Note the glasses, indeed.
forms of protest against oppressive reality.
I mean, honestly, they kind of look cool, like, compared to what, like, Americans would have been wearing as far as eyewear at the time.
Which led him to the National Bolshevik Party. Letov participation
Wow, okay.
in the NBP
Russian punk culture is very different.
led many punks and fans of Russian rock to the
Then again, there were fucking Nazi punks in the U.S. and in the U.K. too, so yeah.
organization.
As the famous song goes, Nazi punks fuck off.
While Dugin's ideas attracted intellectuals and supporters of the conservative revolution. And the mixture of all of this attracted absolutely diverse set of political marginals, as well as artists, writers and musicians, which was the goal of Eduard Limonov, who sought to be the leader of the counterculture movement.
Wait. Yo, listen.
Before moving from France to Russia, Limonov in
This guy was Gavin McGinnis before Gavin McGinnis.
1992 decided to visit the Balkans during the Bosnian War as a correspondent, in order to cover the conflict on the Serb side and fulfill his dream of being a writer who has fought in the war.
If you come from this kind of communism, your counterculture is probably more right-leaning. Yeah.
It seemed to me then, and years later I confirmed this vision, that the Balkans were my Caucasus. Just like for Lermontov and several generations of Russian nobles and intellectuals, the Caucasus served as an arena of feats and immersion in exotic in the 19th century.
Oh my god, okay.
For me, the Balkan Wars became a test at the end of the 20th century. The romanticism of Schiller and Byron.
Oh,
Lermontov
these guys
and
actually,
Debussy,
yeah, okay,
also
so these
the
guys
military
went
adventures
into
of Hemingway and Orwell pushed me to the
the
Balkans.
Balkans. Yeah,
I stayed
like
in the Balkans.
during the
I wanted
conflicts.
to experience everything I could.
That is a LARPy thing.
After
Listen.
the Bosnian conflict, Limonov's touring continued in Transnistria and in the Abkhaz.
I remember DJ Mule was watching this part and said something about LARPing, and I was like, ooh, I'd be really careful to, like, take these guys as LARPers, right? Because the Nazbols in general, like, you make a mistake by taking them unseriously, by thinking that they're LARPing, by thinking that they're not really invested in a project. They very much are. They very much are. And their project has more opportunity right now in the United States than I think it has in a long time anywhere, right? In that it combines sort of right-wing social politics with a perception of populist economic policies, right? And of course that is some clickbait right there. But you know, it's not like people don't fall for clickbait. Schiller did nothing wrong. Having a pic of wait, can I pronounce this name? Felix. I can't fucking say the name. Felix. Fucking not gonna pronounce that. They want you to think that they're not seriously. I did say that, but I want to know that what DJ Mule, I want you to know that what, like, you know, this is just like me, like, you know, putting a little asterisk by what I said in that video, right? DJ Mule was talking more about, like, the way that these guys want to be like, yeah, is there a war going on in the Balkans here? Let me go down there and be like, you know, like, I don't know. It's like they wanted to feel some kind of valor or some kind of manliness or some kind of like, oh, I'm in the war. You know what I mean? There was like a certain larpiness to like what they're doing in being, and you know, kind of like wanting to portray themselves. Jazinski. Okay.
Georgian War. Participation in military conflicts as a correspondent and photographing with weapons
Okay, I got it. I think I got
to
it.
further claim that he fought on 5 wars. Once Limonov was
LARPy.
even mistaken
This is
for
LARPy.
an emissary
Yeah,
of
no.
Russia's shadow national
Hey, chat. DJ Mule was right!
patriotic government that stands in opposition to Yeltsin. In one of his books, Limonov describes a misunderstanding that occurred between him and Ratko Mladic, a general and one of the Serbian leaders of the Yugoslav conflict, who was later handed a life sentence for war crimes. Ratko Mladic was mistaken about my identity. I was a Russian immigrant with a French passport, but he thought that I'm an emissary from Russia. The result of this misunderstanding was a 3-hour conversation. Mladic told me that they needed helicopters Mi-24 and C-300 missile systems. They also needed fuel for tanks. The Serbs lacked smuggled fuel. Limonov did not hurry to dispel such misunderstandings, because
he's
it
gonna
was
take advantage of it.
beneficial for his image of a defender of Russia's interest in the former territories of the Soviet Union and neighboring Slavic republics. The image he later continues to build on the pages of his own newspaper, Limonka. While Limonov defended Russian minorities in the former Soviet republics in his articles, Alexander Dugin tried to create a coherent ideological framework of the party. However, this was quite difficult to do. The NBP recruited very diverse members in its ranks through the flexibility of its rhetoric, which attracted unorthodox communists and nationalists, while radical youth were attracted by anarchist direct actions, as well as by controversial stylistics of the party. The NBP's flag was inspired by the 1986 film Sid and Nancy, in which Gary Oldman's character, Sid Vicious, wore a t-shirt with a sickle and hammer in a white circle on a red background. The filmmakers used hammer and sickle due to censorship. In real life, Sid Vicious, like many punks of the time, wore swastika for the sake of shock value and provocation. For many NBP members, both the party's symbolism and its totalitarian and aggressive rhetoric bore the same meaning of provocation and protest against ordinary reality. The NBP also never had a coherent program. There was an approximate view by its ordinary members that after the revolution there would be maximum cultural freedom within the
Vicious
country
just didn't know what the
and
fuck
strong
was going on.
geopolitical
Yeah.
opposition to
Yeah.
everything that is not Russia.
Unironically.
The ideology looked in abstract terms as a combination of the idea
that
of
Alf?
national liberation
Wait,
from Western
what are they fighting?
capitalism
Is that
who
Alf? Were they
dictated
fighting
economic
Alf?
policy under Yeltsin with the idea of economic justice.
Were they fighting
Nazbols
Alf?
were declaring their ideology as
a
radical
pig,
right
okay.
wing
I thought it
and
was
extreme
Alf.
left wing simultaneously. Limonov was saying that the ideology of national bolshevism
it's a-
and the party itself are two different things. And it was true in a sense that not only the party didn't have a coherent ideology, but the NBP itself wasn't a party in a strict sense. It was something of a movement and a hangout for a large number of different political marginals who were united by hatred towards the existing
Oh yeah,
structure
yeah.
of
Except it would be
society.
like it was like
And for
two
whom
hammers.
this hatred wasn't
Yeah,
framed
in
into
the
a
wall.
clear vision of what exactly to do with it. This is how left-wing Soviet dissident and researcher of far-right movements Alexander Tarasov describes the National Bolshevik Party. Since everyone saw something of their own in Limonov and Limonka, the NBP formed from completely dissimilar regional groups who were not sided with each other in any way. It is no accident that when Limonov held a party congress in Moscow, one of the most difficult tasks was to see delegates in a way to avoid physical scuffles among them. It is interesting that Limonov succeeded in this. Try indeed to bring together retired Stalinists, former Trotskyist postmodernist gays, skinheads, former anarchists, punks, bohemians, Orthodox traditionalists, Buddhist neophytes, and others. The NBP was not originally an ideological organization, but a lifestyle organization. In the terrible social reality of the Yeltsin era, the NBP became a psychological outlet for a
Interesting.
large portion of young people. They did not
Postmodernist
care
gay.
about ideology.
Yeah, I
They
know,
needed
right, wait,
a
wait,
style
wait.
of
Yeah,
resistance
yeah.
and an
Okay, so
organization
that is a
that
weird thing.
represented such a style.
Yeah, to say postmodernist gay, right? Because like postmodernism, you know, you've got an artistic movement, you've got an intellectual movement. Generally, when people say postmodernism, like I don't know, Derrida, like right, that's kind of what's being pointed to. A lot of times they mean deconstructionist, right? Yeah, God, to some people that just don't have a good sense of it, they think that it's like, all right, like we have like humanity, and for most of humanity, they were all like, hey, shit that makes sense, good, yeah, shit that doesn't make sense, bad, meh, meh. And then at postmodernism, they were like, no, actually, shit that makes sense is bad, and shit that doesn't make sense is good, and like that's like legit. Like when a lot of people say postmodernism, or they'll just use it to say like anything. Like Jordan B. Peterson, when he talks about postmodernism, holy shit, it's like anybody who disagrees with him, postmodernist. Like think that trans people, you know, are like exist and are valid. Postmodernist, right? You know, it's like, yeah, anybody that disagrees is a postmodernist. Like there's a lot of people who use that as just generally like a cudgel. You fucking postmodernist. You don't care about you don't believe in anything, right? And in reality, it's more complicated than that. That's not exactly what Derrida was talking about, and these people wouldn't be able to even point to Derrida as in, like, you know, this is what I mean by postmodernist. Like, right, like I said, it's a tool. It's a weapon for them. So, yeah.
However, the NBP was not
So what is a postmodernist gay? I have no idea.
just
Honestly,
a
I don't know
subcultural
what they
project.
mean.
It was an organization that constantly changed its positions, while remaining both romantically radical in terms of rhetoric and poorly pragmatic in terms of political actions, reflecting the essence of its leaders, Dugin and Limonov. Thus, despite all the animosity towards Yeltsin, the NVP supported the war in the Chechen Republic in 1994. And in 1996, Limonov decided to support Yeltsin in the president.
It's weird that there are gay Nazis. Yeah. Well, listen. Okay, so here's the deal. We have to like be a little bit precise in our thinking when we're talking about Nazbols, okay? Because Nazbols are fascist, but they're organization in Germany in this, time, and unless you are adopting their style of, dress and their symbology, and you are like directly pointing to, yes, that thing good, right? You're like, your virtue signal is Hitler good, then you're not a Nazi, right? And that doesn't mean you're not a fascist, right? And these, if Dugin wrote that fascism emerges according, and Dugin is a fascist, right? So he's writing this as a positive. He's not writing this like as, he's not an anti, like Dugin's the guy with the beard that we saw, right? There's Limonov and Dugin that we've kind of been following. So Dugin wrote that fascism emerges according to the time and place of its emergence. And, in Germany, it had the characteristics of the German people. And in Russia, in post-Soviet Russia, it had the characteristics of the post-Soviet Russian people, right? So, yeah, it's kind of like, like anything can be a fascism if you're brave enough. Oh my God, chat, why am I so dark? Anyway, like, yeah, that's kind of the idea. So you've got, like, you've got Nazism and you got fascism. And yeah, is there overlap? Oh, hell yeah. There's a bit, look, I can see right through there. There's totally overlap, right? But is there also areas of non-overlap? Areas that are, like, oh yeah, what is it? Like, yeah, the fascism bubble fits within, or the Nazism bubble fits within the fascism bubble. So all Nazis are fascist, but not all fascists are Nazis. That's, like, kind of the shorthand. So in other words, Dugin and what he's going to do is going to have different characteristics. And like for somebody like Haz, right, like some of those characteristics that you find in the Nazi Party are not present in, Haz's version of fascism, right, which has other enemies and different ways of kind of like hiding who their enemies are. In fact, we might be coming out, chat, with some content on my drama channel. If you're not subscribed already, get over there on YouTube. All right, I got two channels. One is the regular channel that is just for the everybody, anybody, whatever. You like to watch debates. You want to see me analyze the debates, like the Professor Flowers debate with Vaush that I just analyzed and had to fucking defend like these fucked up accusations at PF. Right? And then you've got the drama channel, which is the stuff that's a little bit too spicy for the normie. So if you're not a normie, you can come over to the spicy channel and get it unfiltered from No Drama Check. And that we're going to have some content showing how Haz attacked me for being trans. Now, Haz, if you ask him, he'll tell you he's not a transphobe. But he'll code it in such a way as like, that says like, I know good trans people and good trans people do this and good trans people do that. So he's got this idea of like the good ones, right? That he's like upholding of like, if you uphold the gender binary and you do this and you do that, then like supposedly you're okay in Haz's book, but really we fucking know. We're not fooled, Haz. We know how you feel about trans people, okay? But like, yeah, it's an interesting deconstruction of Infrared and his ideology to take a look at the exact way in which he attacked me, because that shows you a lot about how these people think and how they're trying to reconceive fascism for the 21st century. That is Haz's mission, to reconceive fascism in a way that he can present as non-fascism or even anti-fascist. Yeah, that's right. He had a debate with a fascist recently so that he could play the hero, so that he could be the one saying, like, clapping back at this racist with, strangely enough, like, I don't know, chat. I'm not analyzing that debate. I am not trying to do anything more to build Haz's career, but I am trying to let BreadTube and let the debate sphere know exactly what they're getting in this new debate bro Haz, right? And how he's not exactly the same as other debate bros. No, this dude openly avows a philosopher who calls himself a fascist. That's Alexander Dugin. That's who we're learning about here. So, yeah. Trying to connect it to some stuff that's going on here and now.
Against conservative communist Zyuganov. Guided by the logic of accelerationism, the worse it is,
have roots in jealous Italian fascists,
the better. This led to...
Well, I mean, it's just like fascism is like a set of ideas, right? That the Nazis took and molded in their own, image, right? And that like the Dugin and Liminov then took, or I think maybe more Dugin. What does Limonov call himself? I know for 100% for sure that Dugin called himself a fascist, right? So that this is a tradition that he is he is continuing, right? And Haz, I guess, too. If you know, then again, listen. The fucked up thing about Haz is he calls himself an ML. He calls himself a tanky. He kind of degenerates those like terms. He kind of like you. Can you really be a Marxist-Leninist without being a materialist? According to Haz, you can, right? I don't know. Like, yeah, it's like he kind of bastardizes everything that he pretends to be a part of. So, like, I almost wouldn't be surprised if there was another level of where he didn't even get Dugin right, or he distorted Dugin in some way to be even worse, because that is what I've seen. I've seen Haz, like, he's hiding behind 89 proxies. You know what I'm saying, Chad? He's hiding. He's like an onion inside an onion inside an onion. It's a Russian doll thing, you know, right? There's like, what is the real Haz? What is actually on the inside here? And I don't want to find out, Chad. I don't want to stick around and find out. Let's smash fascism today.
To Igor Lyatov's departure from the party. Lyatov, keeping his party card, gradually stopped to participate in politics. And after a tour in support of Stalinist and trade unionist Ampilov in 1999, he left politics for good to carry out his personal spiritual anarchism in Christianity. Despite
What? What was that? What is up with fucking Russia? Oh my god, seriously? Did I just see what I think I just saw? That was... Oh my god, that was wild. That was wild, Chad.
Dugin's attempts to build up NBP's ideology.
He had a Christian rock. Yeah, no. Wait, was it Dugin or was it... Who was that? Who was that singing? Whoever it was, they had a Dugin... Or they had a Christian anarchist. Wait, wouldn't it be kind of a Christian? Wait, I don't even know what that was. Who?
Only a small fraction
wait.
of
I guess we gotta roll it
intellectuals.
back. I guess we gotta roll it back. What the fuck did I just see? Holy shit, Russia! You are full of surprises. I mean, I kind of dig it, but at the same time, not this, you know, stuff. Like this is bad. I like the fact. Okay, here's what I like about Russia. Like, bears will come up to people's houses and they will like feed the bears and they will fuck with the bears and they will live very dangerously to make a YouTube video. I appreciate this about Russia. I appreciate this. I would not be so brave as to feed a bear through a window that the motherfucker could literally crawl through if he wanted to, right? The fucking literal bear could just like what am I saying? The bear could come crawling through the fucking window. Like, it scares the fuck out of me, chat, but I love it.
Politics. And after a tour in support of Stalinist and trade unionist Ampilov in 1999, he left politics for good to carry out his personal spiritual anarchism in Christianity.
Wait, is this Dugin? Is this fucking Dugin? Wait, I missed it. Did they say, like, is this fucking Dugin? Sorry, chat.
Supported the war in the Chechen Republic in 1994. And in 1996, Limonov decided to support Yeltsin in a presidential election.
Okay, so this is when Limonov went to Yeltsin.
Against conservative communist Zyuganov. Guided by the logic of accelerationism, the worse it is, the better. This led...
Oh! Chat, I never knew that. That is why Limonov supported Yeltsin. I was kind of wondering. It kind of didn't seem like a good match, but he literally, that accelerationism. Like, he was literally, like, thinking, yeah, Yeltsin will be terrible. Let's vote for him.
So Igor Lyatov's departure from the party. Lyatov, keeping his party card, gradually stopped to participate in politics. And after a tour in support of Stalinist and trade unionist Ampilov in 1999,
so this is another politician?
He left politics for good to carry out his personal spiritual anarchism in Christianity.
Okay, yeah, it's literally a Christian anarchist band. But hey, like of all these people, like he's like doing his fucking Christian anarchist, like his anarchist Christian rock or whatever the hell that is. Like that's got to be better than being a fucking Nazbol.
Despite Dugin's attempts to build up NBP's ideology, only a small fraction of intellectuals who made up their own faction in the party were interested in it.
The only thing I can think to compare this to is like are there like American bands that like yeah, where like they're hardcore, but then the singer becomes like Christian later on, and they like turn into like basically like they change the like you know what I mean? They like reform, but they're like a kind of a Christian band now.
Dugin realized
Isn't there a thing for this?
that he wouldn't be able to
Can anybody think of an example?
make his own project out of the NBP in order to promote his radical traditionalism, decided to leave the party in 1998.
Okay, so this is Dugin breaking off because of radical traditionalism, and this is the faction that Haz, you know, that Haz is influenced by. Like Haz, like I'm pretty sure told me he was not about Limonov, he's about Dugin.
Causing its first series split. Following Dugin,
And this is the part of what Haz is about that he will try to hide, is this tradcon bullshit. He is a full-on fucking tradcon. Like, that is baked into his cake.
the number of his supporters also left the party. At the same time, during Yeltsin's second term, there was a gradual transition from pro-Western liberal to a national state position among some parts of the political elite. Seeing this transition, Dugin, having left the NBP, began to actively seek connections with the authorities, offering them his
Fucking clout chaser.
ideological project, reformatted from extremist national bolshevism to a more politically correct Eurasianism, which can be kept.
Didn't Public Enemy break up in 95? I don't know. I have never met anything but weak beta accelerationists. 2005. Oh, one of the Korn members did that. Yeah. There was straight edge bands that turned religious. That doesn't surprise me. Pandering to those Christian bucks. Well, I mean, yeah, that's where. Hey, chat, maybe I should like relaunch myself as no comment. Like, I can't. No comment Christian. I don't know, chat. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Characterized as
I'm
Russian
just gonna become a Christian rock star Vocaloid. What?
Orthodox imperialism. And when Putin became president,
There should be Christian black metal where the lyrics embrace God's fucked up evil metal nature. Nice. No Christian chick. There we go. Like Creeping Death or Metallica. No Christ chick. No Satan chick. Yes, there we go.
in 2000, Limonov followed the same way as Dugin, by offering to authorities his services of an extremist. This is how he describes his conversation with the FSB general in his book My Political Biography. By the way, we, the NBP, are doing your job for you. You should have paid us. You don't need to wiretapping us. You need to be friends with us. Let's work together. Don't be resentful for a moment. There are areas where the state cannot interfere and lower its prestige. To threaten embassies, to organize demonstrations here and there in Latvia.
What? He's like being like, don't wiretap us anymore. Just like, reach out to us. We'll help you fuck up over other countries without getting your hands dirty. Yeah?
Or Ukraine. We can do it for you, and the state can officially condemn us. We will be an expression of anger of the ordinary Russian people. Offering his services to Russian authorities by using his young radicals as FSB errand boys, Limonov may have justified it by trying to use the people in power to his.
So that's super weird. I had thought that Limonov somehow like got on board with Putin, but he wasn't. He wanted to destroy the country using Putin.
Disadvantage. However, after his offer was rejected, he stood up in a tough opposition to Putin. During this period, the NBP is becoming more left-wing. The party's official stance on Chechnya is becoming anti-imperialist and pro-separatist. At this time, many Yeltsin's liberals are being excluded from the power by Putin. The government became increasingly authoritarian and conservative, making its opposition more liberal. Right-wingers began to leave the NBP, which began to attract more liberal elements to the party, which was much more in line with Limonov's mentality of an anarchist bohemian writer. However, despite Limonov's own anarchism and the
What? Liminov's an anarchist? What?
declared democratic organization in the NBP, there was no question about who is the leader in the party. And all the party's changes and its politics, especially after Dugin's departure, were directly determined by Limonov's own change in his political sentiment. People who did not like changes in the party line and who were not
Also a
intellectually
bohemian,
passive
yes.
were leaving the party. Limonov
He's just a poor boy. He needs no sympathy.
was more and more surrounded by obedient young members, for whom ideology itself was not important, as well as their own political ambitions.
What is he doing? This looks like he's starting a cult.
They were happy to be near Limonov,
Are they
who
gonna?
provided
He's gonna make them skinheads?
them
What is he
with
doing?
an
What is he
opportunity
doing?
to frame their
Wait, why would the leader of a political movement be shaving people's heads? Chat. What the fuck is this? What is this? I'm the leader of an anarchist party. Yeah, I guess we all are, right?
anger and frustration into something meaningful. Limonov's lovers also become
Postmodernist
younger
anarchist.
after he broke up with Natalia
Okay,
Medvedeva.
now he
in
looks like the guy from the Talking Heads a little bit. Doesn't he look kind of like the Talking Heads guy?
1995, he dated a young woman for 3
He's the Talking Heads guy.
years,
Wait, that okay.
whom he abandoned 8 months pregnant and began to date the 16 years old
Oh
Nazbol.
my god, no. Wait, they all have to shave their heads? What is this thing with... But he doesn't have to shave his head? I don't understand.
In 2001, Limonov, declaring that in Putin's Russia revolution is impossible,
That's 2001?
came up with a new strategy, inspired by his Balkan experience. New plan was to find
looks like
fully
some
controlled
old-ass
territory
footage.
in any former Soviet republic with a sufficient Russian population, seize this territory by force and declare it New Russia, Novorossiya, in order to further spread revolutionary separatism to other
Nokia
regions,
filmed? Yeah.
including Russian ones.
Maybe
It
they
was
enlarged this
decided to
Buddhist.
make such a
Yeah.
territory Northern Kazakhstan. In order to ensure
okay.
the success of the operation, Limonov wrote a letter to then FSB
I
director
remember this is the dude that went into, the Balkans to LARP, and it sounds like he actually ended up making some deals and stuff.
Patrushev, which was secretly
Fake it till you make it, I guess.
handed over to him when he spent his leisure time in one of the Moscow's elite saunas. The letter proposed a deal enacted by the FSB
Nokia.
during the Kazakhstan operation
Oh, the
in
phone.
exchange for a future loyalty from the new revolutionary government. After reading the letter, Patrushev ordered close surveillance on the NBP members.
Where the fuck are my cat ears?
Waited when Limonov and several dozen volunteers gathered together to seize the Kazakh steppes in the Banoya village of Altai Republic, bordering North
I don't know where anything is,
Kazakhstan.
Chad.
The local FSB branch surrounded the house their Nazbol
I literally
slept,
don't know where
and
anything-
then arrested Limonov and his closest associates.
What?
The youngest failed separatists were released on the
What?
spot to get home on their
Damn,
own.
look at that one. That dude's like...
Limonov
that
was
guy's
sentenced
very...
to 4 years in
you know,
prison for illegal possession of
That
weapons.
one guy was very
But he
buff.
was released on parole after 2 years in 2003. During the next
Come
few
on.
years after Limonov's arrest, Nazbols organized a number of loud
What are we
actions.
doing?
The lack of coherent ideology
There we go,
was
okay.
compensated by protest fervor.
See,
The
I'm a
NBP
pro. I know how to
organized
fix that.
rallies
I know
at
how
the
to fix
different
that.
embassies, threw their
I've watched
leaflets
Xander
at the
Hall.
NATO summit, vandalized government buildings, threw rotten eggs at the government representatives and loyalist cultural figures. The most daring of the actions was the seizure of one of the cabinets in the presidential administration building in 2004, in the result of which 8 Nazbols received prison sentences. While sitting in prison, Limonov outlines a new strategy for the NBP. The new ideological abstract of the party he describes in the book Our Russia, where he declared that the new Our Russia is Russia without the church, without the empire, and without the family. This is how Alexander Tarasov describes Limonov's new vision. Limonov acted as a fierce critic of customs, traditions, psychology, and culture of the Russian people. He called it Russian adat. Constantly setting the West as an example, Limonov called for the destruction and overcoming of the Russian adat, and, in fact, for the elimination of the Russian nation, and its replacement by a new nation, revived if possible from all of the people of the former Soviet Union. Calling for the destruction of everything that limits and suppresses the individual, and first of all the state and family, Limonov proved not to be a Bolshevik, but a classical anarchist.
Yeah,
in fact, he did not hide it,
weird.
Directly writing that
so this
in
is
the
guy
dispute between
that
Marx
Haz
and
doesn't
Bakunin,
like.
he chooses Bakunin's side.
He chooses Bakunin.
Because
yeah,
of its
this was a
ideological
famous,
eclecticism, or rather
beef.
anti-ideology,
What?
the NBP, on the one
What
hand,
is this?
attracted various political marginals.
What? Oh my god, they're teaching him to fight. Yeah, this is like, this is a weird way to take, so wait, I mean, like, I wonder what people say. Do people consider, like, what he became to be an anarchist? Because I think his party was the one that continued to be called the National Bolshevik Party, if I'm not mistaken, right? Whereas Dugin's was, became the Eurasian Conference.
But on the other, repelled the traditional left and right-wing organizations. Nationalists distanced themselves from Nazbols because of the presence of Jews and other minorities on the leadership positions in the party, and because of the NBP's plans to rebuild Russia within the borders of the USSR.
What?
Groups. The controversial writings of the immigrant Limonov.
Russian in my town. Oh, the Russians in your town do a lot of sambo. Sambo's really cool, yeah.
Also had its effect.
Wait, what am I thinking? Sambo? No, wait, I'm thinking of another one. Sanda. I'm sorry, I thought you meant Sanda.
The left treated the NBP more favorably, and despite Limonov's nationalist demagoguery, some left-wing organizations carry out joint actions with Nazbols. But
This
there was
is
never a
incredibly
complete
interesting.
rapprochement between them. Groups. The controversial writings of the immigrant Limonov also had its effect.
It's
The
me,
left
Eddie.
treated the NBP more favorably, and despite Limonov's nationalist demagoguery, some left-wing organizations carry out joint actions with Nazbols. But there was never a complete rapprochement between them. Despite some joint events, there was constant clashes between Nazbols and other left-wing radicals. Liberals, in turn, really did not like radicalism as well as totalitarian rhetoric and symbolics of Nazbols.
Wow, not a popular, Oh my god.
However, after Limonov
Chat, that was like when Samantha Banana was on Vaush the other day. That's what that was like. I think the VGG kind of like ushered her out in a similar manner.
comes out of prison, he and his supporters gained the status of martyrs of Putin's system. Constant direct actions and criminal prosecution of Nazbols allowed them to draw wide attention of the public, which brought to the party a large number of new members. Liberals, who by that time were either pushed out of power by Putin's siloviki or were incorporated into the new state order in subordinate positions, started to see Nazbols as allies in their fight against Putin. The NBP supported the Rose Revolution in Georgia in 2003, as well as the Orange Revolution in Ukraine in 2005. At that time, the party organized the largest congresses in its history. These congresses were sponsored by Yeltsin's oligarch in exile, Boris Berezovsky, the man who brought Putin into power, then became his irreconcilable enemy, and then successfully died from suicide at his home in London.
Oh,
In
wait.
2006,
Wait, was it suicide chat? Is this one of the situations where they don't think it was suicide? They think it was Putin? Is this one of those things where it's like there was like traces of uranium found in his like...
Limonov formed a coalition with chess player and opposition politician Garry Kasparov and former
Also, software design. No, that's different. Is that a different software
chairman
thing?
of the Russian government Mikhail
Is it software somehow?
Kasyanov, in which Nazbols threw rotten eggs just 3 years ago. The coalition was named Our Russia and united left and right-wing centrist parties and blocs, as well as the Left Front movement. Although Limonov said that the alliance with the liberals and bourgeois parties were tactical, the traditionalists who remained in the party at the time accused Limonov and his supporters of anarcho-liberalism and withdrew from the NBP. That was a second major split in the party. The former members formed their own organization, the National Bolshevik Front, joining Alexander Dugin International Eurasian Movement. At that time, Limonov was fed up with his young lover and got married to actress Ekaterina Volkova. The marriage of the political radical and mainstream actress made a lot of noise, which brought them both additional popularity. The new broad opposition coalition of liberals and leftists began to pose a serious threat to Putin's power. In the consequence of that, there was a severe pressure of law enforcement agencies on the opposition, as well as the series of imprisonment, torture and murders of Nazbols all over the country. In 2007, the Moscow City Court declared the NBP and its symbolics extremist. The party and its activities were prohibited in the Russian Federation. Being outlawed, Nazbols continued to take an active part in the Our Russia. In the same year, Mikhail Kasyanov left the coalition. Because of the NBP ban, Nazbols ceased to carry out direct actions. The most active members of the party were either imprisoned, killed, or forced to emigrate from the country. The remaining Nazbols began to lose their identity and dissolve in the Our Russia. During that time, Limonov, instead of developing his own party, competed with Kasparov for the role of a leader in the coalition. Instead of direct actions, Limonov in 2009 initiated a new social movement, Strategy 31, the goal of which was to hold rallies for freedom of speech and freedom of assembly at the end of each month, if this month has 31st day. This strategy was supported.
I can see why people call the Russian Nazbol movement its own thing. Like, this is really, I mean, like, the way that Liminov's organization splintered off, and it's, it is functioning as like a, part of the opposition against Putin. This is kind of...
by Russia's largest human...
Whereas you can see, like, Dugin's faction is entrenched in the political establishment of Putin.
Rights organizations, such as the Memorial Society and Lyudmila Alexeyeva's
surprised that it can mean such different things.
Moscow Helsinki group. Protests for freedom of assembly were regularly dispersed by the OMON, and participants received fines and administrative arrests. By 2010, the rivalry between Limonov and Kasparov led to the dissolution of the Our Russia coalition. Limonov, accusing Kasparov of breaking up the coalition, creates a new party with the same name, Our Russia. The party symbol became hand grenade Limonka in a white circle on a red background. It was Limonov's attempt to reincarnate the old NBP. Meanwhile, the protest movement against Putin authoritarianism gained its momentum, which resulted in mass rallies against fraudulent elections in 2011. By this time, Limonov had already begun to see himself as the unofficial leader of the whole Russian opposition. Occupied mainly with his personal ambitions, Limonov did hardly engage in party building. New members didn't join the Our Russia, and the old Nazbols were leaving the party. On December 10, 2000,
Thank you, Zach, Zach TV? His liberals always sound like liberals. Is Kasparov a Nazbol? I don't think so. The Kasparov sounds like he was the leader of the other faction, one of the other, or would it be the like, so other Russia, I gotta, no, don't do accent. I'm sorry, I want to just like, other Russia is, the coalition, that's a coalition, yeah, between the Nazbols and whatever Kasparov's faction was, right? So they, and maybe others, got together and said, okay, we are more alike than different, we're kind of on the same team, you know, we're anti-Putin, like, let's work together, right? And they were the, it sounds like the Nazbols themselves were under the National Bolshevik Party is what we're talking about. Because, like, right, like, as we say, Nazbols, you know, we had, like, one strain of Nazbols, Putin and Limonov, break apart, right? Limonov now supporting Yeltsin as an accelerationist measure. Dugin eventually supporting, you know, Putin as probably, you know, a way to consolidate power. And then they form a party with the Kasparov faction and, you know, get suppressed, get murdered, get, you know, like the party is kind of like, you know, dissolving, right? And maybe for a while kind of dissolves into other Russia, and then Kasparov tries to get the band back together as the MBP. Yeah, this is complicated. This is like way more complicated than I ever could have thought. They split more than Trotskyists. I'm not sure. I know, right? Yeah. I knew he was into politics, but this is kind of funny. Yeah, actually, I didn't know how into politics he was. A lot of them look, this is, well, from what I know for sure is that Kasparov has big brain, true.
2011, in Moscow, the United Opposition organized a rally at Bolotnaya Square.
Oh my god.
But Limonov insisted on holding an unauthorized rally at Revolution Square. There, that would be easier for the opposition to move to revolutionary actions. However, he was not supported by the leaders of the liberal opposition, and the vast majority of protesters had followed them. As a result, instead of a revolution led by the other Russia leader, Limonov discovered himself in a half-empty square with several hundreds of his supporters. Taking it as a betrayal, he walked off the podium and left home. The remaining Limonov supporters went towards Bolotnaya Square. While subsequent massive rallies of opposition did not lead to liberalization in the country, Limonov, feeling betrayed,
Liberals always letting you down.
fundamentally changes his rhetoric. Now, the main enemies of Russia, he sees not...
Yeah, like, so people commented on this earlier. Both Dugin and Limonov, in their own way, they got drip, right? Say what you will about these Nazbols, and they are Nazbols, right? They got some drip. Yeah, Limonov's got a look. Limonov's really got a thing going on. Yeah, that's like, and then Dugin, of course, you know, the bearded man.
Under which many Nazbols were killed and imprisoned, but in liberals. In 2012, he sides with the Orthodox conservatives, and which resulted in Euromaidan. In 2014, he supports the annexation of Crimea, and calls for shutdown of the opposition media, as well as for the expulsion of opposition journalists from the country. The few rallies of Strategy 31 have ceased to be against the government, and now their main goal was support for separatists in Ukraine. After Limonov changed many of his positions...
Oh wow, yeah, they talked about this earlier as being a goal, or, you know, like a strategy, like to, you know, that was the endpoint of their strategy. I was thinking about that, like how, like, that sounds a lot like what Putin actually did in Crimea and parts of Ukraine.
The attitude of authorities towards him has also changed.
Yuri from Command and Conquer?
Limonov began to publish in pro-government media and invited...
So he switched back to pro-government. What in the...
to state TV programs
He just like really wants Crimea that bad.
where he could express his support for Russia's actions in the world. Limonov's reincarnated party failed to replicate the success of the old NBP. The party's ban, as well as Limonov's personal ambitions, played a defining role in its collapse. Another factor in the NBP's demise was the economic growth in the 2000s, which gave many people a sense of stability, making political radicalism less attractive. Also, in the 2000s, with the advent of high-speed internet, many people were able to read political theory, which led radicalized individuals to the traditional left and right-wing political organizations, while moderates began to support Alexei Navalny in his team, which in the second half of the last decade became the main opposition force in the country. Similar things happened to old MBP members, many of which went to work as journalists, either in liberal media or in the pro-government project of Alexander Dugin, who, after leaving the party, with mixed success provided his services of an ideologist to Russian political elite. The NBP, mainly being Limonov's project, throughout its history was doomed to copy his flaws. Limonov's infantile thirst for fame did not allow him to create a serious structure within his party
He was all
and to
drip.
build
He was
long-term
all drip,
coalitions.
chat.
The romantic and
He was too
ostentatious
drippy.
radicalism
It was too
of the
much
NBP
drip. He
has
was too
washed
much of a
out in the
larper in the end.
2000s
Wow.
and was unable to
Oh my
survive
God,
the
chat.
meeting with
DJ Mule was right.
changing material conditions of Russian society. The NBP failed to produce anything in their confrontation
I'm
with the
surprised that
authorities,
they're not
except
doing more
it
on
wasted
Dugin
the lives
here.
and health of its ordinary members. Meeting this harsh reality in 2011 led Limonov to painful sobering. At the end of his political career, his nationalist tendencies overpowered his anti-authoritarianism. Following Dugin, Limonov, who all his
So
life
weird.
declared his intransigence with bourgeois power and who dreamed to overthrow it,
This is so
ended
weird,
up
chat.
in the service of this power as a second-class propagandist.
Maybe they would call themselves just Bolsheviks. They would be more popular.
At the time of the creation of this video, Eduard Limonov died from cancer. He was 77 years old.
Well, okay, so they really were just following the Nazbol Party, like we said. Now I'm curious if there's like a fucking video on the Eurasianist. Yeah, there we go. The strategy of Eurasianism. We have a special Russian truth. Oh my god, I don't know. This might actually be a pro-Dugin thing right here. The evolution of to the fourth political theory. This sounds like some shrimping going on here. Let's see what this is. Wait, is this could be maybe more geopolitical. Wait, what is this?
This video will be about the strategy of Eurasianism, a set of cultural, philosophical, and political concepts centered on the idea that Eurasia, defined as the former Soviet
Wait,
space,
I think this is. I
minus
think
the
this does
Baltics,
apply. Am I
and
right,
plus
chat?
Mongolia, and sometimes northwest China,
We'll see. We'll
has
see
an
what they're talking
independent
about.
civilizational identity and developmental path. In particular, we will answer the following questions. How does Eurasianism define power? What is the global distribution of power? And how can...
Okay, so you can see why I'm watching this one instead of the other one. The other one looked like it was legitimately from somebody being like they were doing a documentary that was 1 hour of Dugin good, right? And we don't need to watch that.
power be organized and manipulated to achieve Eurasianism's goals? To be honest, there isn't actually a standard form of Eurasianism that reconciles...
Okay, so this is, I think, okay, so Eurasianism then we're going to see as a larger concept, you know, like he said, that there, you know, unity of these areas, you know, makes sense and should be sought after, and so Dugin isn't, I'm guessing, the only Eurasianist. So there might be some Eurasianists that are very much, not of his, ideological, not in networked in with him, right? I don't know, Chad.
All its major strands of thought. No state.
That was kind of what I was wondering, though. Is it just a Dugin? Does Eurasianism refer to Dugin's thing, or is there more? And it sounds like maybe there's more. Anyway,
Eurasianism has ever existed to translate.
Wait, is it just another term he appropriated? Okay, so this was a pre-existing thing, and he sort of labeled himself as that, as the daddy of
theory into actual
this idea, when in reality he was the nephew.
Policy. So while most Eurasianists share the video's strategic logic, the precise details, emphasis, and policies will inevitably vary. Nevertheless, we can group Eurasianist theory into three subsets. The first is 1920s classical Eurasianism, including
what
the
are we going to call this?
exiles,
Mods? Do you have any idea?
and Nikolai Trubetskoy.
Mods, do you have any idea what to call this? What do we call this segment? I don't know.
Viewing Tsarist Westernization as the root...
Like Irene's Eurasian... Dugin's Eurasian... Oh, I can't do it. I was trying to make like a... What is that thing? The Excellent Adventure guys? Bill and Ted.
Cause of Russia's collapse.
But I couldn't think of a way to do it with Alexander Dugin. Alex and Eddie's Eurasia... No.
And wary of the challenge that post-World War I self-determination posed to it.
Yeah, National Bolshevism already existed as a movement in the 1920s Germany.
Its integrity. Classical Eurasianism focuses on establishing Russia's geographical and philosophical separation from the West. Eurasianism during the Soviet period pretty much consisted solely of the work of Lev Gumilyov, whose work on history and ethnography
God, I hope you all are feeling nerdy right now. If you're not, let me know.
Western-oriented view of Russian history.
I should also probably play some video
in favor of
games at some
linking
point,
Russia
right?
with the peoples
Video
of
games,
Central
yeah.
Asia.
And if this nerdy
Lastly,
shit is just like
New Eurasianism
not hitting right,
was
let me
a
know.
response to disillusionment with the results of Soviet collapse. Rejecting the idea
The origin.
that Russia's rejuvenation
Nazbol Vortex
lies in the
origins. Yes, there we go.
and
There it is.
geopolitical
There it is. Thank
thinkers
you,
such
Impact
as
Suspect.
Alexander
That is
Panarin
the
and
title.
Alexander Dugin seek to carve out new ideological and political niches where Russia could re-establish its relevance. Eurasianism focuses on four levels of analysis: the state, the people, or ethnos to use the Gumilyovian term, the culture group, or super-ethnos, and the civilization. People and culture group are groupings based on shared behavior, and the civilization encompasses them all through a set of shared values and what is referred to as common historical destiny.
Did that work? Can somebody
Day-to-day
confirm to me
political...
that title actually took? Because I know that sometimes Twitch doesn't want you calling things certain things, and I'm not sure if they're okay with the word Nazbols. I don't know.
Power rests with
What
the
do you
state.
think, Chad? Are they okay with this? Is Twitch okay with this?
The civilizational
Is
values
Twitch
of the
okay
peoples
with these?
and culture groups it governs. Should their values change, the state
Oh, I
loses
changed it. I think I
legitimacy
changed it.
and collapses.
I just need somebody to check on it
Therefore,
and make sure it actually
Organizing
changed.
and maintaining ideological power in the form of civilizational values is a key,
It works.
if not the key, aspect of Eurasianist strategy.
Wait, what? Did I just miss something? Okay, we did.
For Eurasianism,
Okay.
geography determines the global distribution of power, but not in the sense of resources.
Oh, okay. I see.
Rejecting the idea that Russia's rejuvenation lies in the West, political and geopolitical thinkers such as Alexander Panarin and Alexander Dugin seek to carve out new ideological and political niches where Russia could re-establish its relevance. Eurasianism focuses on four levels of analysis: the state, the people, or ethnos to use the Gumilyovian term, the culture group, or super-ethnos, and the civilization. People and culture group are groupings based on shared behavior, and the civilization encompasses them all through a set of shared values and what is referred to as common historical destiny. Day-to-day political power rests with the state, but this is underwritten by the civilizational values of the peoples and culture groups it governs.
What?
Should their values change, the
Okay,
state loses
is it just me, or is this a little bit confusing? Okay, so you got your state. That's Russia contains the. Okay. Okay, I'm just not familiar with a lot of this stuff. Yeah, I mean, like, I get that the Kazakhs live in Kazakhstan. That you've got, what, Russian ethnic groups of Turkish, like, culture? But then, I don't know, why is Russians not circled, in green, like, too? That's what I don't get. And then Eurasia is the overarching thing. State needs to strengthen civilization values. Civilizational values support state power, i.e. if Tartars no follow Eurasian values, existing Russian state no survive there.
And collapses. Therefore,
is it NO? Does NO stand for something?
Organizing and maintaining ideological power in the form of civilizational values is a key, if not the key, aspect of Eurasianist strategy.
Okay. Does anybody understand this? Neko, are you here? If you understand this, Neko, get in mod chat, and I will get in mod chat as well. And you are here. It seems fine with that, from what you've seen. Okay, I was like wondering, is there a reason that you changed it? Wait, okay, morality defines okay, so the cultural values defines progress? Okay, what though? Like, really? But what is this shit? Like, what the fuck is this shit? This seems like I feel like somebody just put, like, 2 + 2 = F. And I'm supposed to be like, oh yes, of course, 2 + 2 would equal F. I mean, like, that like, it only goes, yeah, F, sure, yeah, absolutely. 2 + 2 = F. Yeah, okay. 2 + 2 = like, I don't know, like, asterisk, or like, you know what I mean? It's just like, oh, I literally don't know what you said. But, that's okay. Oh yeah, like, let me get in mod chat. And see if Neko knows what the fuck this shit is about. What is this shit even about?
For Eurasianism, geography determines the global distribution of power.
Why am I nerding out on a Saturday night? Chat, if this is like too nerdy for you, let me know. Like, I also like to play video games.
But not in the sense of resource distribution. Instead, geography shapes the existence, size, and compatibility of peoples, culture groups, and civilizations. Gumilyov's theory of ethnogenesis states that humanity adapts to local environments by changing behavior and values.
Gumilyov is the Soviet theorist.
Each people, culture, and civilization therefore corresponds to a specific место развития, or place of development, and their values represent a specialized and unique adaptation to Earth's geography. Civilizational level место развития generally consist of continental-sized ecological...
Место развития? Is that fucking Latin? What are we talking... What is место развития?
blocks. Europe's wooded peninsulas for the Western European civilization, the desert plains of the Arabian Desert for the Arab Muslim civilization, and so on.
What?
But in Europe and Asia's northern reaches, classical Eurasianists claimed the existence of not simply a block, but a complete geographic system. Here, regional bands of tundra, taiga, steppe, and desert
Wait, is this fucking Minecraft? Are we playing Minecraft? What are we doing, chat? Is Russia literally Minecraft?
span nearly half the globe in a regular progression, hosting the culture groups of the Uralics, Russians, Northern Turkics, and Southern Turkics, respectively. These bands are bound together thanks to three zones of interaction: the Russian plain, the Turkestani plain, and the West Siberian plain. Acting as regions of ecological and intercultural exchange, these plains eventually induced what Gumilyov called komplementarnost, or mutual trust between the culture groups.
Does this make sense to anyone? Chat, I mean, like, I know I pretend to be a heckin' bimbo, but I'm actually pretty smart, and, like, I don't get this. Maybe I'm not as smart as I thought.
From which emerged a unified Eurasian civilization.
Am I not as smart as I thought?
But
Am I a victim of Dunning-Kruger syndrome, chat?
if plains create komplementarnost between Eurasians, then perhaps similar trust would be created with the Western Europeans as well.
What?
This possibility was strongly denied by the classical Eurasianists, who came up with a host of differences:
Okay.
temperature differentials, linguistic phonology, agricultural practice, to assert a geographic and civilizational separation.
Where are they
between
getting
Eurasia
this? Where are
and
they?
Western
What the
Europe.
fuck? Okay, I don't understand. Plains exist that are between a bunch of biomes, and therefore that should engender trust? What?
So from geography, Eurasianists derive several points. Eurasia exists naturally as an independent system, meaning that the Eurasian civilization it birthed possesses its own unique values. These values represent a unique adaptation to their environment, as do the values of other civilizations.
This is so fucking theory-brained. Oh my god, chat. I mean, I'm not just saying.
Ideological
Okay, I
differences
just
are therefore a
okay. There's got to be a lot more like. There's got to be a lot like I think maybe we're just like skipping over like it's like if you've read there's some theory that I haven't read that like oh yeah of course because like the natural role of the plane is as a point of exchange for different biomes, and therefore anyone who lives around the plane is they're gonna be good friends and they're never gonna fight. It's like what? It was like, yeah, because they got like similar cultures. They've got similar cultures, similar adaptations, similar values. And I'm like, okay, I mean...
reflection of Earth's diversity, and any talk of universal values is largely meaningless.
Okay, so there are no universal values. There are values that come from dealing with specific geography. The Russians are the best people because they all got all kinds of Minecraft villagers. There we go.
In an ideal Eurasianist world, every civilization would thus leave each other alone to develop in its own way. But alas, there is one civilization that will not do that. Classical Eurasianists identified it as the Romano-Germanic civilization of Western Europe.
The Anglo-Box! It's the fucking Anglo-Box. Yo, it's the Anglo-Box.
While for the Neo-Eurasian...
Oh, wait, why is Greenland on there? Why is Greenland right? Oh, because was Greenland like settled by Denmark or something?
It is the Atlantic civilization of the Anglophone states. The key feature of their Mistores Vitaes...
Oh, okay. Mistores Vitaes. There's Atlanticism and the Romano-Germanism. Okay, really? Atlanticism. Romano-Germanism. What? Greenland was settled by Vikings.
is a peninsular or islandic geography, whose sea-based or thalassocratic nature encouraged commerce and trade.
So they trust each other, okay, because their plane is the ocean. I get it. Okay, so wherever there's a plane, there's gonna be trust, and the plane of this thing is the ocean. So this is like its own natural system, and then Russia is its own natural system. I don't know. Russia, not just Russia. Sorry, Eurasia.
In turn, produced civilizational
Eurasia.
values of individual competition, materialism, and standardization, underlying modern-day Western liberal, rationalist, and universalist ideology. Eurasianists have no problem with Western values within their own civilization, but universalism by definition has larger ambitions, so the West insists on exporting its values globally. This insistence comes in two ways. First, a quest to convert others to Western values, and second, the creation of a values discourse that judges civilizations as progressive or backward, depending on how closely they match Western society. Furthermore, universalism goes hand in hand with Western global hegemony, exemplified in the colonial empires, American unipolarity, and global capitalism.
Oh my god,
It does this in two ways. Firstly, by encouraging other civilizations to waste energy unlearning their own values and becoming imitators always one step behind the actual Westerners. Secondly, since Atlantic values come from a distinct environment, adopting them in a different geographic context disassociates civilizations from their own environment, creating internal splits that allow Westerners to divide and conquer. In such a way, classical Eurasianists argued that Tsarist Westernization created schisms between the aristocracy and the masses, and between the Russians and other peoples, which with the victory of Western-originated revolutionary Marxism finally tore the civilization apart in class and ethnic war. The neo-Eurasianist Dugin saw similar results coming out of de-Stalinization, perestroika, and Yeltsin-era shock therapy. Eurasianists see the logical conclusion of all this as the global dominance of a Western oligarchy that enriches itself by exploiting a subjugated and chaotic world. There is therefore not just a Russian, but also a global imperative to resist Western universalism. Unsurprisingly, Eurasianism sees Eurasia as the natural leader of the anti-Western resistance. Taking a page from Mackinder's Heartland theory, Eurasianists argue that Eurasia's geographic nature as a self-contained intercontinental teleurocracy makes it far less vulnerable to Western sea-based thalassocratic pressure compared with other coastal civilizations. Only a unified Eurasia can assist other civilizations without worrying about its own back. So how can Eurasia's unification be brought about? First, we need to define unification, which to Eurasianism isn't necessarily complete political unification.
Had other names like
because
the red,
each people represents a specialized adaptation to its environment, local autonomy should be protected, with unity needed only on issues of civilization.
So the Nazbol Vortex is like, yeah, similar to the Red-Brown Alliance, right? You know, the same idea, third positionism. In Dugin's case, he'll actually call it fourth positionism. It's the fourth political theory, right, by Dugin. And it's actually, there's different flavors, right? You could talk about the National Bolsheviks in terms of Germany in the pre-World War II, or you could talk about the this is like a post-Soviet Russian movement that split apart about 1 million times and became so many different things, but the main components we were looking at were the Duginites, you know, those that followed Alexander Dugin, and the Limonov, who was the, I guess, in the head of the NBP, and then the Nazbol Party, and then the God, what did they change their name to? Everything is Nazbol Gang. Yeah. Hey, Amerify. Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah. We're just getting started.
Importance.
We've been doing some nerdy shit tonight, though. We're trying to figure out, like, Eurasianism. So, yeah, the Limonov was, like, one flavor, and, you know, he called his party the Nazbol Party, and it almost sounds like at different times it either was or wasn't National Bolshevik. He ended his life, you know, very much in the service of Putin, and that, in terms of assisting in the Russification, I guess, is that even a word, of Crimea and parts of the Ukraine, right? This was an idea that they had way back when they started the National Bolshevik Party, and they actually sort of actualized it under Putin. So yeah, there's Limonov, and then Dugin is more associated with the Eurasian movement, which split off, and we didn't really get to see because the makers of the documentary that we watched before were more focused on the National Bolshevik Party proper, which, you know, was Limonov's thing. So they didn't really follow. They mentioned Dugin a lot, but they didn't really follow him. And we never did get to see the conference of Caleb Maupin meeting his hero Dugin, you know, guy that identifies himself as a fascist, and then, you know, being completely indignant that I would call him a Nazbol, or that I would have him in my thumbnail about Nazbols in the video. It was Steering into the Nazbol Vortex with DJ Mule.
Such as foreign policy, intergroup
Yes.
relations, macroeconomics, and a common ideological infrastructure. It's possible that Eurasianists would be satisfied with a bloc
But yeah, I'm just chilling with my fucking slimes.
of Russia-aligned states that are generally sovereign, but reliably defer to Moscow in select areas. Secondly, Eurasianism places great stock in the idea that political arrangements trend towards a natural order. Most of all, the idea that geographical unity naturally leads to political unity. The fact
This
that
is some weird-ass geographical essentialism. I don't know what is going on in this weird theory.
it doesn't in reality
I do
is
not
therefore
get
the
it.
result of nature-violating artificial forces, i.e. Western material power, or the spread of Western values such as self-determination.
It would make sense that in times of war, the military-industrial complex wants to gain control of the discipline of philosophy.
Drawing on these ideas, Eurasianists recommend Russia, always the unifying
What? Sovereign internet, traditional values, gas weapon? What? Alternative media? I don't understand.
state, thanks to its size and extensive interaction with all other Eurasian peoples, pursue policies that defend or cordon off Eurasian states against Western power, allowing nature to take its course. Dugin proposes a neutral bulwark stretching across Eastern Europe and the Middle East. Not only does this physically separate Eurasia from Western power, it also
Wait, does a bulwark just mean a wall, like a wall?
shifts the focus of
Pure ideology. I found out I can use my student account to sub for on Twitch. Oh yes! Oh my god. Yes, thank you. We appreciate those primes. Oh my god. I just have to. Oh yeah, the linking of the accounts. Yeah, it's like a whole ass thing, actually. Yeah.
of Western energies away from Eurasia proper.
Eurasia.
Ideologically, even without total communications control, cordoning off could take the form of alternative media and facts, or outright disinformation and conspiratology. Eurasian
okay.
unification
Yeah. So,
also requires
wow.
proper internal organization. To defend the unity against future Western Universalist attempts, the classical Eurasianists in particular called for ideological conformity and mobilization under what they called an ideocracy. Here,
Ideocracy. Okay.
classical Eurasianists saw the policies of fascist Italy as a potential model, while Dugin looks to Stalinism. The exact content of Eurasian ideology is significantly more debated. Most Eurasianists agree on two concepts. First, rejecting Western values discourse on universal rights, individualism, materialism, and progress, and instead promoting natural values of collectivism,
So yeah, this is why Haz is a sussy baka. You know, you got somebody calling themselves an ML, calling himself a tanky, and the motherfucker doesn't even believe in materialism. And I started wondering at that point, wait, what the fuck is this guy? And you start pulling on the threads and you start to unravel the shit, and you find out, yeah, I mean, listen, there's his contention is like, you can't call me a Nazbol, like, I'm a fourth, positionist, the fourth political theory, ha ha ha, right? And it's like, yeah, but come on, that's like, people don't know what that is. You're trying to hide behind the negative SEO value of Duginism, okay, you sussy baka. Like, this is what's going on underneath, right? You're not even a materialist. What kind of Marxist-Leninist are you? And it turns out, this kind right here. In other words, like, this is some fucking, this is some entryism shit going on with Haz.
duality and civilizational uniqueness. Second, reinforcing complementarnost between the Eurasian peoples. Gumilyov, in particular, rejected what he saw as the black legend of the Mongol and Tatar yoke on medieval Rus, seeing it as a Western exaggeration to sow division between the Russians and the Central Asians.
Does not contain much communism.
There is significant
it's
disagreement.
and with Dugin, like, it's a heavy focus on traditional values. So yeah, it's TradCon too. You combine TradCon with just, like, I don't even know, like, when you look at that kind of economics, right, kind of populist, like, like, it kind of virtue signals towards, like, socialism, but I don't fucking trust it. I don't fucking trust it to deliver on that promise, yeah?
How Russian Eurasianist ideology should be. Classical Eurasianists insisted on retaining orthodox values, while the neo-Eurasianist Panarin considered the idea of an orthodox Turkic Islam synthesis. Dugin's fourth political theory advocates a general idea of civilizational distinctiveness and spirituality. The Eurasian agenda for domestic politics and the economy,
spirituality, some fucking materialist you are, Haz,
generally reflects the classical Eurasianist Savitsky's idea of masterocracy. Masterocracy rejects the idea that good policy can be reduced to one or two metrics. Instead, masters need to exercise a benevolent stewardship over society and the environment, not accountable to their subjects, but nevertheless ideologically motivated to promote the development of people in harmony with natural order. Masterocracy therefore promotes top-down guidance over society. On the economy, Dugin translates this into state control over strategic sectors, defense, natural resources, communications, finance, to ensure that profit does not override civilizational values or unity. On politics, he mirrors this by calling for an organic democracy where, instead of vote counting, local elites rule and guide society with popular feedback.
Wait, that sounds
Bound together by ideology, Eurasianism's ideal society blends strategically directed top-down government with strong local autonomy. But this forms only the beginning of Eurasianism's historical task. The next objective is the rollback of Western influence across the globe. A unified Eurasia, in the neo-Eurasianist Dugin's view, faces a world that is dominated by Atlanticism in three ways. Geographically, Atlanticism's control of both the Atlantic and Pacific rims allows it to pressure all other coastal civilizations in an anaconda strategy. Institutionally, Atlantic dominance is cemented in a range of formal and informal structures, from NATO to the US reserve currency to its transnational companies. Finally, there's informational dominance, exemplified in Atlanticism's use of its influential mass media to spread its valued discourse. Eurasianism's operational response is asymmetric warfare. Avoiding contests in sectors or against enemies with an unfavorable balance of power, Dugin proposes redirecting competition into areas that are more favorable, such as natural or energy resources, or else striking at the meta-dimensions of power, like international law and political decision-making. Here, Dugin particularly emphasizes the cyber realm's ability to bypass the formal institutions of Atlantis' hegemony. Asymmetric internet warfare undermines Atlantis' informational hegemony and allows Eurasianist supporters to present civilizational and values alternatives to Atlanticism. But on a strategic level, where should the rollback begin? The first answer is everywhere, in what Dugin calls a coalition of the dissatisfied. Eurasianism needs to make common cause with anti-Atlanticist movements, regardless of ideology, because even the most irrelevant or futile movement serves two purposes. Firstly, it presents an alternative to Atlanticism, and secondly, it draws Atlantis' resources away from the key areas of competition. Which brings us to the second answer, where Eurasia gradually replaces Atlantis' hegemony with a new system of global multipolarity. A unified Eurasia will already have bulwarks in Eastern Europe and the Middle East. Now the anaconda's constriction has to be broken decisively via a strategic partnership with India, which also grants the Eurasian bloc a central position, regulating interaction between Europe, Asia, and Africa. Eurasia can then exploit the advantages of the central position to speed up the erosion of Atlantis' power in Western Europe and East Asia, encouraging their return to civilizational independence in a grand alliance linking Germany, Japan, India, and Eurasia. Penned back into its own environment, Atlanticism will resume its proper position as only one of four power poles involved in global management: Western Europe, East Asia, the Atlantic civilization, and Eurasia. This system is only sustainable with global economic and social reorganization. Dugin argues that the previous model of geographic and economic integration, with Atlanticism at the center and everybody else at the periphery, has to be replaced by a model of vertical belts where each northern civilization is more linked to its southern counterparts rather than with each other. The idea is presumably to hasten the civilizational development and integration of the global south, resulting in an international system where all civilizations are strong and independent enough to participate as equals, a reflection of Earth's natural order. With this overview of Eurasianism's strategic logic, we now turn to a brief look of the theory in practice. Certainly aspects of Russian strategy, such as its emphasis on civilizational separateness and sovereignty, special Russian values, and the use of asymmetric and informational warfare, are in line with Eurasianist thinking. But does that mean Russia is now putting Eurasianist theory in practice? Two things to note. Firstly, Eurasianism is not necessarily popular within Russia, as ethnic nationalists and the broader populace suspect that such a strategy would have Russia send resources to and receive immigrants from the poorer Central Asian states. Secondly, Eurasianist tropes are frequently used to justify non-Eurasianist ends. Kazakhstan, for example, has been a consistent promoter of Eurasianist ideology, but its emphasis has always been on Kazakh distinctiveness and sovereignty as a counter to Russian-led integration. This may also be the case for Putin's pragmatic Eurasianism, where Russia engages in Eurasian integration but justifies it in liberal or even Atlanticist terms. Dugin claims that this is deception, but it's possible to promote regional integration without buying into Eurasianism. An example of this is the Eurasian Economic Union, established in 2015 and so far involving Armenia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Russia. Putin stressed that the EEU is not a tool for political unification. Instead, by banding together, the EEU's members get to negotiate from a stronger position and thus get more out of globalization. Clearly, not a Eurasianist move. At the same time, however, the EEU, by taking down barriers, creating a single capital and labor market, and coordinating macroeconomic policy,
Brexit
clearly
is on
also
the bucket
encourages
list of
a Eurasian
Eurasianists.
economic unity, whose development can be directed from a single strategic center. Furthermore, despite all the talk about globalization, Putinist Eurasian integration tends to reject Western influence, most notably denying Ukraine's 2013 proposal to be integrated into both the EU and the Eurasian Customs Union, sparking off the Euromaidan protests. All in all, while Russia has made Eurasian integration a foreign policy goal, this is not necessarily the same thing as Eurasianism. Putin's pragmatism and domestic constituency prevent him from associating with something as explicitly pro-Central Asia and anti-Western as Eurasianism. It is unlikely that the ideology will become formal state policy in the years to come, if ever. In conclusion, Eurasianism defines power not just politically, but also in terms of civilizational values.
Wait, this kind of makes me think of like Frank Herbert or something, right? This is like the desert power,
Values reflect a distinct adaptation to their environment, which is why the universalism promoted by Western hegemony has to be rejected. To achieve this, Eurasianism proposes a united, ideologically mobilized civilization that takes the lead in establishing a multipolar world. It's probably safe to say that nobody who isn't already attracted to Eurasianism will find its reasoning particularly convincing. Eurasianism has been
This is apparently the tamed version of Eurasianism. Dugin wanted a Russian empire spinning from Lisbon to Vladivostok some years ago.
Criticized as a theory that first assumes Eurasia exists and then analyzes the world on that basis. Reject its assumptions on geography, civilization, and values, and the theory looks like mere justification for Russian expansionism and authoritarianism.
Well,
even then, Eurasianism is still worthy of analysis.
I mean, it does sound like a kind of like nationalism.
For starters, its declarations on civil.
Although, it definitely is trying to mask itself and. Is the weak undervalued?
Civilizational uniqueness and universalism's corrosive effects attract support, Russian or otherwise. It also reminds Western strategy makers that the benefits of universal values are not self-evident and can actually be perceived as harm, if not a mortal threat to society. Recognizing this prevents strategic blunders like the EU's Eastern Partnership Program, where its self-assured promotion of political and economic reforms in Eastern Europe discounted Russia's reaction to what it saw as a perceived assault on its interests, catching the EU unprepared and off guard during the 2014 Ukrainian.
Well, I mean, they did mention the idea that maybe they could break apart. What did they say? The Germanosphere or something, like the Germano whatever, right? And then from the Atlantis, was it like the Germano Anglo or something? And then the Atlanticism, the US and UK.
In crisis. At the same
Romano-Germano, that's right.
time, Eurasianism also blinkers Russia's strategic perception. By portraying Western values as incompatible yet uniquely aggressive, Russia loses the chance to reflect on what makes them attractive and powerful. The contest between Russia and the West also becomes eternal, and there is no room for any permanent compromise. Eurasianists also discount the power of material strength, confident in overcoming it via ideological mobilization or asymmetric warfare. Unfortunately, reality seems to indicate otherwise. Even the natural order of Eurasian economic integration was reversed in 2015 and 2016 thanks to the impact of Western embargoes. Ultimately, Eurasianism's rich intellectual diversity masks a theory that is short on practical political experience. But its ideal of a world filled with independent, distinct civilizations is an enticing one to many, and it would be interesting to see if the world moves in that direction with the continued relative decline of Atlantic power. Thanks for watching the video, and please like and subscribe. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them in the comments section.